Hello, and welcome to this online lecture with the rather unusual title of Not Tolerating Vagueness. I'll start by saying that actually is a quote from a section of a book by Neil Thompson. The book is called People Problems, and it deals with this question of vagueness in the way that people communicate. The key idea here is that when people communicate, they make all sorts of assumptions about how others will understand the words that they use. So if you like, when we talk, we generally assume that the other person will know what the heck it is we're talking about. And the reality is that quite often we don't actually know what the other person is saying. Now, what I intend to do in this lecture is to introduce you to an idea known as the Meta Model, the M-E-T-A, Meta Model. This was a model that was introduced by two people called Bandler and Grinder. Bandler and Grinder, writing in the mid-1970s, were looking at the way that particularly effective communicators, thinking mainly about therapists, but communicators generally, the way that particularly effective communicators actually communicate. What is it that they do that marks them out as distinctively good at communication? And this led them to develop the idea that they call the Meta Model. Now, for those who are really keen, this particular model is drawn from an approach called NLP, which is Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Now, you don't have to buy into the whole kind of NLP philosophy or ideology, but it can be helpful to take some of the ideas from NLP and ask how can we use them within social work practice. And this idea of the meta model, I think, is really quite a helpful one in getting you to begin to think about how you can do what Neil Thompson says about not tolerating vagueness. So let's begin with a bit of an overview of this model. Let's sort of say, where does it start? And one of the key ways of starting this model is perhaps just to look around you now. Think about wherever you are. See, what do you notice? What do you see? What can you hear? Obviously you can hear me. What else can you hear? What physical sensations are you aware of? What's the seat that you're on, or where are you sitting, and what do your clothes feel like, and are you hot, are you cold? What smells are there around you? Now, as you can see, just from that little exercise, that the experience you're having at the moment can be represented in an incredibly rich way. The number of elements to your experience is phenomenal. You just simply could not count the number of elements there are to your experience. And if you like, what I've done here is this little diagram at the bottom here. This I put in, this represents, if you like, the total experience that you're having. So every single thing about the way you are feeling, about your thoughts, about your physical sensations, your whole experience is represented by this bottom shape on the diagram here. But when you come to put that into words, the reality is that no language on the planet has a vocabulary sufficiently large enough and specific enough to cover every single aspect of your lived experience. So as soon as you start putting it into words, there are certain things that we just don't have the words to describe. So as soon as we start putting it into words, if you think back to the model that we've been talking about in lectures, as soon as you go from your intention to your coding of the language will let you down somewhat. However good you are, however expansive your vocabulary, you will never find fully the words to describe what that whole experience is like. So you have this kind of total experience. Then you have this total, your best verbal, your best sort of language-based description of that experience, and then we have the actual words that come out of your mouth. So there are obviously certain things that we say where we take shortcuts. If you like, if you had to describe every single thing that was going on in your head whenever you spoke, you would not be able to communicate very clearly at all, because you'd be saying so much that that you wouldn't have any time to do anything else, basically, because that's a full description of anything would take so long. So we actually use these shortcuts in communication. And what the meta model and what Bandler and Grinder propose is that when we move up from how we represent our experiences inside our own heads, which can be fully sensory, which can take on board the whole of that experience, to put it into words, we begin to do three things. First of all, we delete certain details. We leave certain details out. We take some shortcuts by leaving things out. Secondly, we generalize. So we take a specific incident and we treat that as if it was somehow representative of a whole class of experiences, whole group, so we sort of generalize about things. And finally, we actually are involved in distorting our experience. We actually twist and change our experiences so that it makes sense. This, if you like, goes back a little bit to what I was saying in the previous SWK 1008 lecture, where I was talking about a narrative approach to things. And in a narrative, we actually change the events to make the story make sense. If you like, this is one of the things that lectures do all the time, is we simplify and we put various things together, and if you like, we distort things, not because we're trying to catch you out, but because we're trying to make sure that our communication makes sense. So at the core of this meta model idea is this idea that as we put things into language, there are these processes going on which change our internal experience of something we wish to communicate into something which is intelligible, but also has important gaps within it. There are certain things missing. Now, obviously, if we covered the whole of the meta model, this is actually quite a lot in it. It's quite subtle in places, and it's really useful. So actually, all I'm going to do at the moment is cover some of the more useful and the more general ideas from it, with a view to getting you to begin to use this to think about the everyday conversations that you have. So what I'm just going to play now is a short clip of somebody talking, and I want you to think about how good an understanding do you have of what this person is saying. So what we'll do is I'm going to stop this bit now, and then part two is going to begin with somebody talking, and I want you to think about how well do you think you understand what this person is saying.